Awesome. And we are live.
That's quick.
Welcome to Our Daily Magic, where we talk about rituals we can use to cultivate magic in our daily lives. I am Kai, your co host, and this is.
Dell, the other co-host.
We're introducing you today to a very, very special guest. And would you like to introduce our guest, Del?
How come we can't just let the guest introduce herself?
Well, also, we have a very esteemed introduction that you provided for us. So we can do it. And then also, we'll let Amira introduce herself as well. Do you mind just reading that?
Yeah, sure. So our guest, like we mentioned before, is Amira. And Amira has been a spiritual person ever since she was conscious of her existence. That's pretty cool. She has decided to take on her spiritual abilities after learning about where her healing lineage came from. She's continued the work of her ancestors in many ways. The only difference in the world is in a different frequency. So that is a little short introduction, but definitely want to let Amira to get more into her introduction and showcase exactly her magic today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. I'm Amira. I call myself an energy guide. I channel universal energy and help individuals in their spiritual journey by meeting them where they are, whether they're having a spiritual awakening moment or they're going through spiritual enlightenment. I work with individuals and I provide them customized tools and practices that they can use on their daily lives to help them continue their spiritual journey. So that's what I do.
That's beautiful. And we had the pleasure of being with you in our last summit.
Yes, yes, it was such a great experience.
Excellent. I remember that one of the amazing things that we talked about during the summit, and which is also our theme to discuss today, is is our ancestors. How
Mhm.
how do your ancestors play a role in how you go about living your life, and just tell us more about that. It's such a rich topic.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people kind of get lost with this idea of ancestors because they think that it's like multiple generations ago and something that's no longer a part of you. What a lot of people don't realize is that you carry your ancestors. They're part of your DNA, they're part of your bone structure, they're part of who you are. And your ancestor can be like your great grandparents or even like your grandparents. And we've grown up in a society and a culture that kind of disconnects us from our past, and they want us to associate with somebody else's history. And even in religion, a lot of times in certain types of religion, they don't really reinforce this idea of like, pray to your grandparents who have passed away or acknowledge them. And I grew up Catholic, so for me, we never been taught that, and we were taught instead to like pray to a saint that you had no affiliation with, you had no idea who they were, but it's just like this person is was worthy enough to pray and to praise. So when we talk about ancestors, it's important to understand is that everyone has ancestors, and everyone has ancestors that they can be proud of, and maybe ancestors that probably are not weren't didn't live a very great life. But it's important to acknowledge both.
What does that look like in your life? The acknowledgement or bringing them in?
So for us, like I mentioned, certain cultures, because we certain cultures grew up during times where like certain things were secrets, like where you came from was a secret or who you come from is a secret, so you had to like really ask questions. And for us, we knew who our grandparents were, not all of them, because my father's father is estranged and we never really met him or his family. So there's a part of my lineage that's still kind of like we don't really know of. But when we started asking my father questions, he was hint a little bit about the history, of his lineage. So he would say, yes, my mother knew a prayer that would help women stop hemorrhaging. And I'm like, you know, when you're younger, it kind of like blows over your head. It's like, oh, okay, she knew a prayer. So it becomes like something like, okay, yeah, we all know prayers if something somebody did. And then he's like, and then another time we would ask, and he's like, oh yeah, her father did prayers. He prayed over the people of the community, and they would go to him so that he could heal them from like you know, if they had any illnesses. At one point, he did kind of hint that he would help people during exorcisms. But then he would kind of like reword the way that he would say things because it was all through prayer. So he was making sure that it was still kind of like in alignment to like their belief system. So for me, in acknowledging what my grandmother has done and what my great grandfather has done has allowed me to identify what I'm able to do, and just acknowledging sometimes we don't have a face to who they are either. So just like, you know, putting faces to the names, like we were able to get a picture of my grandmother, of my great grandfather, which is a big deal, and just placing them on a wall, creating a space which we would call an altar, where we would, you know, just like if we have some type of sentiment, we want to light a candle, kind of like reclaiming small practices that, you know, some of us have been told are like what is it, voodoo or like santeria or anything like that. Reclaiming those practices and understanding where they come from, and, you know, saying like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm choosing to do, to connect with the people I come from.
Awesome, and great way of explaining that. And this ancestor thing is something that I've been interested in for myself because I wanted to understand, or still do, want to understand more about my lineage, meaning like past like relatives that I haven't never even met before in my life. So this is like a personal question, but I'm pretty sure people out there is going to have this similar question. As a person who wants to connect with their ancestors and they never really had an experience with them, those ancestors, because they may have passed on, or maybe in this physical life they never even had that relationship with them, what would you recommend for a person that's looking to seek that type of connection with the ancestor? What would be like a good first step for that person to do in that pursuit of connecting more with ancestors that they may have never even met in the physical world?
I would say just having the intention to meet the people who you come from, right? Like a lot of us, we need to get over the idea that we're orphans, or like that we're spiritual orphans. Like we come from a lineage, we come from people. Like we're not here alone, or we don't just have like the direct family we have around us. We come from people. There was people that were here before us. And I think if we start making those connections and are open to it and have that intention of like, okay, I'm open and ready to meet who I come from or who my people are. Deep meditations, I would say. I know that one of my clients experienced seeing her ancestors while we were doing a session together. So she said that she envisions women. She comes from a lineage of also healers, but her healing lineage is from midwives. So she comes from midwifery lineage. So she said, I was able to see the property of my family, that I then asked my mother, what did it look like? And she was able to like really say those same details of what she saw. So deep meditation, just being open to it, asking questions. Sometimes we don't realize how much our family knows. So even as just keep asking questions. Our parents' generations and our grandparents' generation, it was a generation of like everything was a secret. So ask questions, and if they feel resistant to answer one thing, like find a sweet spot of like where you can get any type of answer from, because you never know. Just like the small little details of your family members can help you start making those type of connections, and pray to them. Pray like I want to get to know before bed. I want to make more of a connection with you. I want to know who I come from. I want to know what your life was like here before you go to bed, because when we're in the astral world, we're in a spiritual place, and we're able to kind of like see more and like hear more. And I think if we also switch the way we see things, because so I like to say, like, your ancestors have always been around you. They are around you right now, except you can't see them. And maybe there's something about you that's not allowing them to really show themselves to you. I grew up and I didn't realize that my grandfather has, or my great grandfather has always been around me, because I thought it was just a ghost and it was an evil spirit. So we have these abilities, these like psychic abilities to see things around us, but we're so, some of us, we're indoctrinated to think they're evil. So this man has been always by my feet while I was sleeping, and he was always trying to tell me something, but I was too scared to receive it. So I would tell him, no, no, like, go away. Until I'm like, now as an adult, I'm like, that's been you this whole time. So now I'm able to receive the messages that he wants to tell me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And definitely want to allow Kai to have some space to talk about ancestors as well. What are your thoughts?
I'm actually learning here more so than I am, one to speak on these things. Ancestors is actually a place where I have not explored very much. So I really appreciate all the information that you're sharing, Amira. And if there are any particular, like, rituals that you would recommend for a beginner in this area, I'd be happy to receive that too.
Yeah, I think just being more intentional. I don't think we realize how many of us, we just live a autopilot life, and we wake up, we walk around, we do what we have to do, and then we go back to sleep. We don't realize what we did the whole day. So just like once you wake up, like once you open your eyes, you breathing intentionally, just like breathing life into your body, because that's what happens. Like we were like in a different state of mind when we're relaxing, and just breathing and being intentional, welcoming your ancestors to your life that day, and saying like, I receive the guidance you want to give me, I receive the messages you want to give me. Maybe if you're writing these things down too, because sometimes, our heads are so busy, prayers are probably just something else, like a loaded baggage. So just maybe writing the intention down, or like wanting, saying, I welcome my ancestors, I desire to find out who they are. And then just like your daily routines also. I think like drinking water is so spiritual, and I don't think we realize that. Like when you drink water, just saying like, I'm nourishing my body, I'm nourishing every part of my DNA that I still carry. I welcome the spirit of my ancestors. I welcome um I welcome all the messages that they want to give me. I welcome the downloads that they want to give me. I allow them to guide my steps and to help me continue their legacy. That in itself is a ritual. It's an intention. It's profound because it's water, and water is life. Water has information in it. Lighting a candle. I light a candle. I acknowledge those that I come from, even those I'm not aware of. Just like these small little things that we can do. When you look in the mirror, I understand that I'm not just myself. I'm open to understanding everyone that I'm a part of. Taz, go ahead. I understand, that I'm not just myself, so that you can become like kind of like an open vessel, and understand that, like, you're trying. There's different ways that you're trying to kind of connect, to make those connections.
I'm playing around with the mute and unmute button. This is a new feature right here. We're playing with the new stuff. But thanks so much for sharing that. And while you were sharing that, I was just thinking about this experiment that happened and they did with chickens, and which with chickens when they got attacked by hawks. So the chickens that survived, they were fearful of a hawk coming to get them, so it was afraid. But then the chickens born after that, the chickens will be afraid looking for a hawk because it's embedded in them with the fear. And I want to fast forward it to just us in the present times, and we all know what's happening besides the COVID. A lot of racism and things that are coming up to the forefront. So I wanted to shift it to like that type of discussion. Do you feel that potentially us we act out with some of the stuff that's embedded with us in our DNA from what our ancestors may have gone through, let's say from oppression, and on the other side of things of people being the oppressors? Do you feel like that could potentially be something that's embedded in our DNA in the way that we are acting right now if we're not consciously aware of those type of motions that are happening?
Definitely, and that's something that I'm always aware of. Like I mentioned in my bio, like the earth is in a different frequency, so everything is kind of like amplified. And I'm so aware of like so a lot of our challenges are coming to the surface so that we can face them. Like a lot of our fears are coming to the surface so that we can face them, so that we can kind of elevate from this human body and become light beings, right? Because we're going to function in a different frequency. So for all of us that experiencing all this kind of like not knowing, all this fear mongering, it's so important if we like it's so important that we tap into ourselves and tap and really raise above the fear, because we already come from that kind of like DNA. That's why it's been so hard for us to really understand who we are. We've had to, our generation has been all about unlearning all the indoctrination and relearning who we are essentially as melanated powerful beings. And I speak about this all the time, and a lot of people are experiencing physical ailments because they don't want to release things that are not that are not are no longer serving them. Like they're holding on to like, you know, these old ideologies, they're holding on to these old identities of, you know, their experiences of what they went through as children. The kind of like the new frequency is not allowing that, so we're seeing a lot of people our age just going through a lot of ailments. And I'm like, we need to realize that we're more than just our physical bodies, and that if our physical body is telling us something, we need to address it in a spiritual way, because there's something that's happening within us that we have to kind of shed. But we're so scared, and we feel so disabled that we don't want to address these things. But we have the capacity. Our parents didn't have the capacity. What was the light? Very bright, as I'm talking about light beams. Yeah. Our parents didn't have the capacity to do the work. Therefore, we're the ones that are doing the work for ourselves, for our parents, for our great grandparents, and for all our generations to come. What we do right now is going to set the standard of how our children are going to live in this world. So we have to be super intentional and understand that it's not only about us, it's about the generations to come.
Beautiful explanation.
I'm glad.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I was seeing things as well. How we're collectively we're shifting to a new way of being, shifting to what we already knew deep down who we really are. And in the process of getting there, all these things are coming to the surface collectively so we can heal together and move on together. And for me, the way that I'm seeing things right now is from an ego scope of view, in which the universe is bringing these things in front of us to show it, and we take it for what we need to take the information to help us to get to another level. But I love the fact of what you mentioned of how what we're doing is impacting our future generations. So it gets me excited because I have an 8-year-old son, and yeah, doing this work, I'm like, this type of work that's happening right now was not happening before, like for my parents and before that. But it's such an honor that this is us. We're here.
Mm-hmm.
We've been chosen to help shift this unity consciousness to another level, and it's very powerful and
Mm-hmm.
it's very honorable. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. It makes me wonder, you know, Amira, what things are we being present to now that is like actually so different, than what had been going on previously for our ancestors. Like there's this, some people say there's nothing new under the sun, and then some people are like, well, actually, there are things that are very different. How do you feel about that? Is there anything new? How do you relate to it?
I mean, I feel like for me, I feel like there's a veil that has been lifted. Like all these different ideologies that were only resonating at a certain type of frequency are kind of like all being questioned. So all types of religions, organized religions, are being questioned. Like people are really starting to think, what is it that I really believe in? And I feel like for my parents and my grandparents, they it wasn't a question of what you believe in. Like you were told what to believe in and you believed in it, because that's kind of like what everyone did, what the community did, and you didn't want to be ostracized from the community. So there was a sense of like, I want to be part of this because this is my family, this is my home, this is what I feel comfortable in. But now like everything's being challenged, like your belief system is being challenged, and you are being challenged. So now we have a bit of a sovereignty too. I think spiritual sovereignty is a good way to put it. It's like you're being asked, like, who are you really? Because what our ideas also of like success and the things that we used to strive for, like when we were kids, we were thinking, I want to grow up to have this and this and that, because that's what my parents told me that I should grow up to have. That's all shattered. It's like, where the half of the companies are no longer functioning, a lot of people are going bankrupt, money is not really a thing. Even like becoming Instagram influencer is not really a thing anymore, because capitalism is failing. And this ideas of like what is the term I'm looking for, like materialism, like is now no longer satisfying people. Like obtaining all these things that we used to work hard for is not satisfying people. People still feel like something is missing, and it's their own responsibility to figure out what is it within me that is missing, something that can no longer be fulfilled by all the surface level things that I was turning to. No, I'm gonna go.
Whew. I'm allowing the space of silence to let that integrate for people who just heard that pretty powerful truth bomb that you just dropped right there. Yeah. I am lost of words right now.
It makes me wonder too, like what does, if we're moving from social currency, what does spiritual currency actually look like? Like what is enriching our lives? You're talking about the the importance of the connection, that we maintain. Like it just makes me think, what else is there?
Peace. Like I'm like, I feel like there's so many people that are struggling and being resistant to change and evolving, because they don't know what it feels like to not have all these burdens like they've been carrying. To be spiritually sovereign and spiritually fulfilled is peaceful. It's living a full life. It's not necessarily needing anything else other than yourself to feel like damn, like life is amazing. And and it's sad because I think people's idea of life and what feels good is being also challenged. So people don't know what feels good, because within their own physical bodies, they've been ill for so long, and illness can be like headaches all the time, stomach aches all the time. I'm sorry, my nephew just keep going. Today he wants to go.
It's totally fine. Your nephew has something to say as well.
Yes, he's a little ooh, sorry. The little wise man. Sorry about that. I gotta switch. Um, but yeah, so I feel like a lot of people, if they recognize the importance of peace and see how fulfilling peace can be, um, they would want to do the inner work that it takes to get there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And of course, I definitely want to piggyback a little bit off of that too, because we're all are being pushed that way to do the inner work. And some of us, like us three right here, we are voluntarily choosing to do that inner work and really integrate that inner peace, that infinite peace, and that connectedness and that unity consciousness, the oneness. And then some of us, we are still kicking and screaming and not trying to do that work. Hence, what's happening in the forefront in this reality. But yeah, that's what we're all looking for. We're all looking for that peace, looking for that happiness, looking for that love, looking for that appreciation, looking for all these different things. And what's happening now in this year 2020, which is synchronistic, that is 2020,
Mm-hmm.
the hindsight is the fact of the external stuff. It just leads you to those things temporarily, but you have to keep getting more and more accumulation of those things to really feel that love, feel that appreciation, and all these things. And now we're being forced to take a look within ourselves to find out what part of ourselves was actually looking for that and integrating that and giving ourselves that those things that we've been looking for externally. And I don't know about you guys, what's been happening for me is as I've been doing this internal work and integrating those parts of me that have been searching externally for these things externally to start to show up, and I don't even need them anymore. So, so this is how it works. When I don't need you anymore, that's when you pop up.
Sorry, were you asking me something? I
Now
didn't
just
get that.
talking, and then
Oh, okay.
perfect silence.
So tell us about those parts of you that you don't need anymore.
That's perfect. So the parts of me, I wouldn't say I don't need anymore because it is me, and it's a part of me that needed some attention, that I needed to just bring some awareness to it. I was just telling you about this, and I don't mind sharing it. There was just parts of me from my childhood that needed some attention. There's parts of me that wanted attention from my parents, wanted attention from others. And when I didn't get that attention, I felt upset, felt not worthy, felt not deserving. And for myself, recently, I've been really integrating these parts of myself and giving myself that attention that I was looking for, the appreciation, the acknowledgement. And then what's been happening lately is I've been treating that little kid of myself with different things that I wanted, from this t-shirt that I wanted as a kid, and I got it for myself. And also I wanted to get this wrestling championship belt when I was 10 years old, and I got myself that belt. And it's very powerful and uplifting because I started to have a space and hold a space for myself in which I can take care of me. I don't need anybody else to take care of me because I got me, but also I can allow other people to show up when they're ready. If they want to take care of me, perfectly fine. But it's like I don't need it. And what I love now is that it allows me to allow other people to show up in a way that they are in moments, because I don't need you to show up in this type of moment. So that way this part of me doesn't feel upset or feels triggered or something. It's like, show up as you are. Sort of like the church saying, like, come as you are type of thing. That's how I'm living my reality.
Got it. So how are you integrating that now?
Integrating that part
Mm-hmm.
by just being present in a moment. And also just when I realize for myself when something may potentially bring up some emotions in me, I sit with it. because I know that there's a part of me that is upset or maybe quote unquote triggered by something that's happening in the present moment. And instead of me saying like, oh, it's this situation, is this thing happening, I just say, what part of me is upset right now? And it allows that whatever part of me to show up and to be acknowledged. Because that's, for me, my perspective, what I feel is when we get upset and when we're lashing out and those type of things, it's sort of like a kid that just wants to be heard and is doing stuff to get attention. Like, hey, I just want to be heard. And once you allow the person to be heard, it's powerful to be acknowledged and not to be judged, and also be able to speak your truth and not be judged for the fear of what would happen if I speak my truth. What would happen if I have a different opinion than what other people are saying, and just being able to do it, which is something collectively we're moving there, but there's the process of that happening.
Got it. A great segue. Amira, I'm curious, how do you treat yourself in the context of being a future ancestor?
Ooh.
Oh, that was a powerful question. That's interesting. I always thought of myself like as a mother or a future mother, maybe as a grandmother, but not a future ancestor. So that's a big deal. I think what you're saying, Dell, is so important about awareness, about honoring that part of yourself. I think a lot of us think that only because we're adults we get to forget our past and not honor all parts of us. So we constantly are ignoring that child within us, despite the fact that that we function out of that child. So the way that we are is because of that child, but we don't want to honor the child. So the way that I kind of, I guess, prepare myself to be an ancestor is by honoring all parts of myself, honoring whatever comes up, because this idea of self-exploration came to me at a younger age. I was able to do all that very hard work that a lot of people are doing right now. I was able to do it in my own head in silence when I was younger. Even though, as an adult, you think you're over something and it comes up and you're like, okay, so we have to reassess, which is fine because we have an upper hand as adults. We are able to see an experience and not be in the experience. So I honor myself as an ancestor by all the learning all the wisdom I could learn from my childhood experiences, for how I experienced those experiences, and just grabbing all the lessons and making sure that I understood how I was impacted by it, so that I can continue to help and guide others in their journey, even though for everyone it's completely different and we all have a different thought processing that we go through. But yeah, I think, and this just was by taking care of myself. I think we need to take a lot of care of ourselves. So the way that you're saying, Dell, that you're like buying all these things that you wanted as a child, that's really thoughtful, because I never really thought of like buying things for myself that I wanted, right? Like as a child. So maybe I'll think about those kind of things now. Like how would I want to be nurtured as a child? And some of us wanted certain things, but we couldn't get them. So that's a good way to kind of like honor yourself too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it helps to shift your belief system as well, from like that not deserving to like, yeah, I am deserving of things I want. Look, I'm giving my child portion of me the things that I always wanted, and I'm receiving that in the present moment. So there's like this energy like, oh yeah, I'm deserving. What else do I want? What else do I want? And just asking that and just going for it. It's a pretty fun tool.
Absolutely.
So this term just came into my mind. I don't know if like somebody has said it before, but one of like these terms that out there is shadow work. So I was wondering, is there a term out there called ancestral shadow work? And if there is a term like that, or if I just made it up just now, I wonder if we are collectively doing some ancestral shadow work together right now. What is both of your thoughts on that?
Wow, you guys are on a roll today. That's actually a really, really good point and perspective. I don't think I've heard that term yet. What I will say is I have experienced clients that it appears that what they're carrying within themselves in their body is not necessarily their baggage, but their ancestors' baggage. So, like I mentioned earlier, when we heal ourselves, we're healing previous generations and the generations forward. Sometimes we don't understand where our pain is coming from. Sometimes we can't even pinpoint like what is it that's really bothering me. And it's probably because it's not really your pain. It's probably somebody else's pain that you're carrying that you have to transmute into something positive. For example, so a sister that I've been kind of working with, who the same sister I've mentioned before, who comes from the lineage of midwives, she's carrying a lot of pain in her body, and I can see within her, she knows who she is until certain things kind of like spark that memory of something she cannot pinpoint. So this is essentially her ancestors' experiences that she has to kind of heal within her own body. And it can be something as small as feeling inadequate, feeling like you don't have the ability to do something, even though you're constantly reminded that this is your life purpose. Um, or it can also feel like feeling unaccepted, feeling like, wherever you walk into spaces, people don't accept you for who you are. These are also kind of things that probably our ancestors, I think a lot of our ancestors may have felt because of the different situations that they were going through during those times, that like now it comes to us in a different way, but it's for us to kind of heal and transmute into our life purpose right now. So by her acknowledging these things about her, she's able to step into her life purpose right now and do the work of her ancestors. So essentially, she is healing herself and she's healing her ancestors as well.
There's a great quote that you posted on Instagram. It says, when you doubt yourself and your abilities, you don't only dishonor your higher self, but you reject the generations of family members that sacrificed for us to have the ability to achieve our wildest dreams. I feel like you were just speaking to that. That's so crucial.
Yeah, I wrote that in my own doubt. In my own moment of doubt. And I have a bit of a, I don't want to say privilege, but I have a little bit of a privilege because I can pinpoint who my ancestors are. I have proof of the work that they did. So when I dishonor or disbelieve my abilities, I'm not disbelieving what I can do. I'm disbelieving what I come from, because I'm not myself. I'm everything that comes before me. I'm everything that comes ahead of me. So if we start to make those connections, we'll be like, okay, hold on. Like, I'm not going to speak bad about myself, because I'm not just speaking bad about myself. I'm speaking bad of so many people. So we can't, like, if we start to think of life like that and make those type of deep connections, we'll be so prideful, and we would live such honorable lives, since Dell, you were saying about honor, like honorable lives, to feel like you walk in purpose, to feel like, you know, you have a legacy, a lineage to uphold, you know, it makes you feel like, damn, like I always doubted myself. I thought like I was just one person, but you're not.
Just showing you some comments we got, some encouragement we got from the Facebook group here. Someone says, "Keep speaking your truth."
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we're thinking about this, like, is there any advice that you have to give for those who cannot, actually pinpoint their ancestors? Is there anything such as ancestors that aren't mine?
What do you mean ancestors that aren't yours?
In your opinion, I mean, like, we're all brothers and sisters, right? But to what extent do we start to delineate? Just because one person is from another culture, does that mean that those are not my ancestors because I'm not blood related? Or can we literally speak to all generations and all peoples that have come before us and glean wisdom from them? Or do you think that it is culturally based?
I mean, I think as spiritual people, we are connected, but I think it's important to understand we take a physical form, we take a specific physical form for a reason. So we all have a spiritual purpose. We all play a spiritual role in this earth, in this world. So it's important to recognize we all have a spiritual essence within ourselves. We are connected in that way in our consciousness. If we tap in, we can tap into all cultures. No matter how you look, we are connected. But I think what religion has done is kind of diluted the idea that we have a deeper connect, that if we have embodied a certain body and lineage and culture, it is for a reason. We come with a specific role. And I think that's important so that you can fulfill your life purpose in this world and in this kind of time frame.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I can't even add on to that because that's the perfect thing, the perfect way of explaining it. We all have this special, unique DNA coding, universal coding within us, and the reason we are wherever we are is meant for a reason, and also our lineage that we do have. It also, I'm also like the curious cat in me always wonder if like these, because like there's different lineages, different ancestors, and we all of course come from the same universal intelligence that we all go into when we transition on, and it's a lot of questions that I do have about that, meaning like past lives and all these other things. And what I always wonder is, like, let's say like in one of our past lives before we came into this body, at that time of this transition, when we come into this new physical suit, are we able to gather all this information from the universal intelligence from that time until we come into the physical body? Like all the information, not only from like our lineage, our family, our ancestors, but like the universal consciousness of ancestors. Are we able to access that information? This is the type of things I'm thinking about.
Well, Dell, I'm not sure who would actually have that thought process, but you probably have downloaded all that information for just thinking that. I'm like, whoa. I mean, I think we do all come with a certain type of intelligence embedded in us, but as children, as babies, when we start to grow up and we get programmed and indoctrinated into certain things and belief systems, we start to forget a lot of that intelligence that we once had. we can tap into those type of intelligence by doing certain things with our body, by meditating, by, just experimenting with our physical body to really tap in, to our spiritual bodies. Can you upload all that information of all your past lives? Probably. Should you? I don't know, because there's a lot of us that can barely deal with what we're dealing with right now,
Yeah.
let alone like knowing all your past lives. I don't think a lot of us are capable of holding all that information. Um, I also, I also feel like you can, like, is it gonna? Sometimes people are like, well, what's the point of knowing all that information? Like, why would I want to know all that stuff? Like, your past life, if you're in this life, it's because your past life you didn't really complete it, so you're like back out here again. So just do this life good, and if you're meant to know your past life, then you'll come across like indications of who and what you were. But I don't think we're all capable of hearing all of that stuff. It's funny though, and I would say this, when we put our physical bodies in certain places and things and do certain or like eat certain things, we might have memories that kind of come up. Like, I've been to certain spaces where I'm like, I've been here before. But if you're not aware of your body, if you're not aware of your spiritual essence, you won't understand that. So that's why it's so important to just know the right now, know the here, know you, because then you can literally get lost of like, who am I? And I personally feel that's what schizophrenia is. You don't know which dimension, which life you're in. It's all a blur. So I feel like a lot of like quote unquote mental illnesses is just being disassociated from the present moment.
Mm.
And that was such a side note. I didn't even
No,
mean to mention that.
that was powerful. That was
Yeah.
a great way of explaining it. And I'm I'm in search of that answer, man. Like, it's a very good question. If
I
that
would say go to certain, like, go to places that you feel called to go to. And if you're there physically, maybe you would get some type of like remembrance. Like, maybe you would get a memory or something.
hmm Yeah. And I'm called to go to the pyramids in Egypt. So that's one I'm definitely called to go into, just to go in there.
Mhm.
But just like
Mhm.
that memory, I feel like I've been there before, type of thing.
Yeah. 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 While you out there, go to Aswan.
Mm.
That's where the Nubians are. You might be a little Nubian.
Perfect, perfect.
Mhm.
So we're about to start to wrap things up, and this once again has been such an amazing co-created conversation that we have created together. And for our viewers out there, is there any parting words that you would love to share with them? And also, of course, how can they find you and get some of that amazing energy work from you?
So my last words would be, to be courageous, like to understand that whatever you have gone through in life, whatever you're going through right now, you can overcome. Allow yourself to be victorious, and just know that like there's an other side to that big hurdle, that big mountain that you feel like is too hard to kind of like come across. And yeah, to just stick to yourself and take care of yourself. You are the most important person in the world. If you do not take care of yourself, nobody can take care of you. So you are the most important person in the world. And you can reach me at amira.pg in Instagram, or Amira Polanco, Polan as in Nancy, CO3 at gmail.com. I am doing energy guidance. I do a sliding scale right now because I know what's going on financially around the world. And I'm actually having a masculine and feminine event in New York City in September. So you could find that information also on Instagram. And I'm actually also selling energy in a bottle. I should promote it like that because it is. I'm selling energy in a bottle product mists, to just kind of like help people be more intentional about what they're doing with their bodies, and just kind of like, yeah.
You got a customer right here.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I'm speaking for Dell, but I know that I absolutely enjoyed this conversation, and it is always a pleasure to be in your company and to be able to explore our magic together.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I apologize for like the little noises around, but he was sleepy. My nephew's knocked out now.
It's all perfect.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone who is watching and listening. We appreciate you, and we look forward to having you join us next time.
Thank you. Thank you for the great show.
Yep.
Likewise.
And stay magical.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye.